So to find the area of a parallelogram, again, understanding that area is the amount of surface that is covered, perimeter is the distance around. So perimeter would be how much fence would go around a shape, and area would be how much dirt would I need to buy, or how much sod would I need to buy if I wanted to cover that surface. When we look at these formulas, everything has a formula, which is nice. You don't have to use the formula for perimeter. It's just adding up all the sides. But in the case of a parallelogram, you have two lengths and two widths, or two bases and two heights. And so you can use the formula, but you can also just use the fact that you need to add them together, add up all the sides to get the perimeter. Area is length times width, or we also use base times height. One thing that is important to know is that the base and the height are always perpendicular to each other. So that is the height of the shape, and just so you can see it, it is also the height of the shape outside. Because basically we took off that triangle and slid it to the other side. So your height can be inside or outside of the shape. And really we just want to know how tall it is. If I stood it up, how tall would it be? But the height and the base are always perpendicular to each other. So that's what you want to look for, is that right angle, to know which numbers to use. So if we look at number 1, I want the perimeter and I want the area. So perimeter means I need to add up all the sides. Well, it's a parallelogram, so we know that our opposite sides are congruent. So if I use the formula, then perimeter is 2 times the length and 2 times the width. And it doesn't matter which one you call which, but we have 2 times 6, which is 12, plus 2 times 5, which is 10. So the perimeter is 22, and it's 22 meters. Perimeter is measured, it's a linear measurement. Area is how much surface is covered. So I have my base, which is 6, and my height. We're looking for that right angle. There's our hint. Looks like a little bitty H. So we're looking for that height. So area is base times height. So it would be 6 times 4. So our area will be 24 meters squared. So number 2, very similar. We've got a parallelogram. So if I'm just asking for the area, so area, always do this. When you are needed the area of a shape, go find the formula. So the formula for the area of a parallelogram, determine, okay, this is a parallelogram. The area is base times height, or length times width. So base times height, because then it gives you a hint as to what you need. Well, my base is 3, right? So this base is also 3. My base and my height, we always want to look for that little bitty baby h. That's our height. So our base is 3, and our height is 18. And 3 times 18 is 54, and they're yards squared. So in number 3, here's what we've got. Now, again, it's a rectangle. That means it's a parallelogram. That means I need to use base and height. I need the base and the height. Here's the deal, though. I have, my base is 15, and I have that diagonal, which is 17. So the problem is I don't have the height. But if you think back to middle school, and if you think back to what we did earlier in January, we know that when we have a right triangle like we have right here, then we can use Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to take a break for just a second for finding the area and the perimeter, and we're going to go find the extra piece that we need. So I'm going to do height squared plus 15 squared is equal to 17 squared. So height squared is equal to, not equal to, sorry, is plus 225 equals 289. So 289 minus 225, you get that the height squared is 64. So then take the square root of both sides, and you get that h is 8. The height is 8. So now I know this side is 8. So now we're able to answer the question. So my perimeter is 2 bases and 2 heights, or 2 lengths and 2 widths. So it would be 2 times 8 plus 2 times 15, So it'd be 16 plus 30, which is 46. So my perimeter is 46 meters. My area is base times height. So I need the base, which is 15, times the height, which is 8. And 15 times 8 is 120. And it's 120 meters squared because area is always in units squared. Okay. Now, what happens when we know the area? Well, again, you have a formula. I gave you the area is 24, and the height is 6. Here's my height. My height is 6. I need the base, x. Well, if you write down your formula, area is equal to base times height, and then fill in the pieces that you know. Well, area is 24 is equal to the base times the height. Well, if that bothers you, if you don't like x times 6, then rewrite it so that it looks like what you're familiar with, 6x. Divide both sides by 6, and we find out that our x, or our base, is 4. And you can also think about, okay, if it's base times height, then 6 times what is 24? Okay, some of you who can do the math or do the logic that way would understand it, okay? Now, what is the perimeter of a square if the area of the square is 729? Well, let's look at this square. So square is a parallelogram, so it follows the base times height rule. Okay, but the thing about a square is that its sides are congruent. So the area of a square is actually side times side, or we could say that the area is side squared. So if both of those are the same, if the area is 729, then side squared is 729. Well, I want to know what each side is. Well, take the square root of both sides. So you type in the square root of 729 is 27. So the side length is 27. So every square that has an area of 729 is a 27 by 27 square. So my sides are 27 inches. Now the question said, what's the perimeter? And I had to find the side before I could find the perimeter. You can't just go straight from area to perimeter. So there are 4 sides. So if I take 27 and I multiply that by 4, I wrote the 24. Take 27 and multiply it by 4, you get 108. So it is 108 inches. That is the perimeter. So it's important. I know right now we're only using one shape, but when we start using multiple shapes, go find the formula and write it down, and then plug in the pieces that you have so that you can figure out how to find what you need. Most important thing is the base and the height are always perpendicular to each other.